The old street lamp. Have you ever heard the story of the old street lamp? It is not particularly amusing, it is true, but still it is worth hearing for once. It was a very honest old lamp that had done its duty for many, many years, but was now to retire from active service. It felt like an old ballet dancer who dances for the last time, and who on the morrow will sit in her garret forgotten. The lamp was very anxious indeed about the next day, for it knew that it was to appear for the first time in the town hall, and be examined by the burgomaster and the council to see whether it was fit for further service or not. It was to be decided whether it was in future to show its light for the inhabitants of one of the suburbs, or in some factory in the country. Its way might even lead straight to an iron foundry to be melted down. In the latter case, anything might indeed be made of it, but the thought whether it would then retain the recollection of having formerly been a street lamp troubled it terribly. Whatever might happen to it, this much was certain, that it would be separated from the watchman and his wife, who looked upon it as belonging to their family. When the lamp was hung up for the first time, the watchman was a sturdy young man. It happened at the very same hour when he first entered on his duties. Yes, it certainly was a long time ago that it became a lamp and he a watchman. The wife was at that time rather proud. Only when she went by in the evening would she deign to notice the lamp. In the daytime, never. But now of late years, when they all three, the watchman, his wife, and the lamp, had grown old, the wife had also tended it, cleaned it, and provided it with oil. The old couple were thoroughly honest. Never had they cheated the lamp of one drop of its proper measure of oil. It was its last evening in the street, and on the morrow it was to go to the town hall. These were two gloomy thoughts. No wonder it did not burn brightly, but many other thoughts passed through it too, to how much it had lent its light, how much it had seen, perhaps quite as much as the burgomaster and the council. But it did not give utterance to these thoughts, for it was a good, honest old lamp, which would never have hurt anyone, least of all the authorities. It thought of many things, and from time to time its flame flickered up. At such moments it had a feeling that it, too, would be remembered. There was that handsome young man, it is certainly a long time ago, who had a letter on pink paper with gilt edges. It was so daintily written, as if by a lady's hand. Twice he read it, and kissed it, and looked up at me with eyes which plainly said, I am the happiest of men. Only he and I knew what was written in this first letter from his love. Yes, there is still another pair of eyes that I remember. It is something wonderful how thoughts jump about. There was a funeral procession in the street. The young, beautiful lady lay on a grand hearse in a coffin covered with flowers and wreaths, and the number of torches darkened my light. The people stood in crowds along the houses, and all followed the funeral as it passed. But when the torches were out of my sight, and I looked round, a single person still stood leaning against my post, weeping. Never shall I forget those mournful eyes that looked up to me. These and similar thoughts occupied the old street lamp, which was burning today for the last time. The sentry who is relieved from his post at least knows his successor, and may whisper a few words to him. The lamp did not know who was to succeed it, and yet it might have given a few useful hints regarding rain and fog, and some information as to how far the rays of the moon fell upon the pavement, and from what side the wind generally blew, and many other things. On the bridge of the gutter stood three persons who wished to introduce themselves to the lamp. believing that the latter itself had the bestowal of the office it filled. The first person was a herring's head, which could shine in the dark too. He thought it would be a great saving of oil if he were stuck up on the post. Number two was a piece of rotten wood, which also shines in the dark. It believed itself to be descended from an old stock, once the pride of the forest. The third person was a glowworm. Whence it had come the lamp could not understand, but there it was, and it could give light too. But the rotten wood and the herring's head swore by all that they held sacred that it only gave light at certain times, and could therefore not be taken into account. The old lamp declared that none of them gave sufficient light to fill the post of a street lamp, but none of them believed that. They were therefore very glad to hear that the office could not be given away by the lamp itself, declaring that it was much too decrepit to choose aright. At the same moment, the wind from the street corner came rushing along and passed through the air holes of the old lamp. "What do I hear?" he said. "You are going away tomorrow? Do I meet you today for the last time? Then I must give you something at parting. I am now going to blow into your brain box in such a way that in future you will not only be able to remember all that you have seen and heard, but it will be so bright within you that you will be able to see all that is read about or spoken of in your presence." "Oh, that is really much, very much," said the old lamp. "I thank you heartily. I only hope I shall not be melted down." "That won't happen just yet," said the wind. "Now I am blowing memory into you. If you get many presents like that, you will be able to pass your old days very pleasantly." "I only hope I shall not be melted down," said the lamp. "Or should I, in that case, also retain my memory?" "Old lamp, be sensible," said the wind, and blew. At that moment the moon came out from behind some clouds. "What do you give the lamp?" asked the wind. "I give nothing," answered the moon. "I am on the wane, and the lamps have never given me light. On the contrary, I have often given the lamps light." With these words it again hid itself behind the clouds to escape from further demands. A drop now fell down upon the lamp, as if from the roof. The drop declared that it came from the gray clouds, and that it also was a present, and perhaps the best of all. "I will penetrate you so thoroughly that you will have the power to turn into rust and to crumble away in a single night, if you wish it." This seemed to be a very bad present to the lamp, and the wind thought the same. "Does no one give any more? Does no one give any more?" He blew as loud as he could. There fell a bright shooting star, forming one long band of light. "What was that?" cried the herring's head. "Didn't a star fall down? I verily believe it went into the lamp. Really, if such high-placed personages compete for this post, we may say good night and betake ourselves home." And they all three did so. The old lamp shed a wonderfully strong light. That was a splendid present, it said. The bright stars, which have always been my greatest joy, and which shine as I have never been able to shine, although I have tried with all my might, have yet noticed me, the poor old lamp, and having sent me a present, consisting in the power of letting those I love see all that I remember, and which I myself see as plainly as if it stood before me. And herein lies true pleasure, for joy that cannot be shared with others is only half joy. "Such sentiments do you honor," said the wind. "But for that, wax lights will be necessary. If these are not lit up in you, your rare powers will be of no use to others. Do you see? The stars have not thought of that. They take you and every other light to be wax candles. But I must go down." And the wind went down. "Good heavens! Wax lights!" said the lamp. "I never had such things till now, and I don't suppose I shall get them in the future. I only hope I shall not be melted down. The next day, well, the next day we shall do better to pass over. The next evening the lamp was reclining in an armchair. Guess where? At the old watchman's. He had begged of the burgomaster and council, in consideration of his long and faithful services, the favor of being allowed to keep the old lamp, which he himself had set up and lit for the first time on his first day of office 24 years ago. He looked upon it as his child, for he had no other, and the lamp was given to him. Now it lay in the armchair near the warm stove. It seemed as if it had got bigger, for it occupied the chair all alone. The old people sat at supper and cast kindly glances at the old lamp, which they would have gladly have given a place at the table. They certainly only occupied a cellar, 6 feet below the ground, and one had to go along a stone passage to get to the room. But inside it was very comfortable and warm, strips of cloth having been nailed along the door. Everything was clean and neat. There were curtains round the little bedsteads and before the little windows. On the window sill stood two curious flower pots, which Christian the sailor had brought from the East and West Indies. They were only of clay and represented two elephants whose backs were wanting. In their place there sprang up from the earth, with which one figure was filled the most beautiful chives. That was the kitchen garden. Out of the other grew a large geranium. That was the flower garden. On the wall hung a large colored picture, the Congress of Vienna. There they had all the kings and emperors at once. A kitchen clock with heavy weights went tick, tick, and always went fast too, but the old people thought that this was much better than going slow. They ate their supper, and the street lamp lay, as we have said, in the armchair close to the stove. It seemed to the lamp as if the whole world had been turned round and round, but when the old watchman looked at it, and spoke of what they two had gone through together, in rain and fog, in the short bright summer nights, as well as in the long nights of winter, when the snow came down, and one longed to be back in the cellar, then the old lamp felt all right again. It saw everything as plainly as if it were now taking place. Yes, the wind had provided it with a capital light. The old people were very active and industrious. Not an hour was spent in idleness. On Sunday afternoons some book or other was brought out, preferably a book of travels, and the old man read aloud of Africa, of the great forests, of the elephants which run about wild, and the old woman listened intently, with stolen glances at the clay elephants which served as flower pots. "I can almost picture it to myself," said she, and the lamp heartily wished that a wax candle had been there and could have been lit up within it. Then the old woman could have seen everything to the smallest detail, just as the lamp saw it. The high trees, the branches all closely interwoven, the naked black people on horseback, the bands of elephants trampling down the reeds and bushes with their broad, clumsy feet. "What is now the use of all my powers if I get no wax light?" sighed the lamp. "They have only oil and tallow candles, and that won't do." One day a great heap of wax candle ends came down into the cellar. The largest pieces served as lights. The small ones the old woman used for waxing her thread. So there were wax candles enough, but it occurred to no one to put a little piece into the lamp. "Here stand I with my rare powers," thought the lamp. "I carry everything within me, and cannot let them take part in it. They do not know that I am able to transform bare walls into the most gorgeous tapestries, into the most beautiful woods, into everything they can wish for." The lamp was, however, kept clean, and stood shining in a corner, where it caught everybody's eye. Strangers considered it a great piece of rubbish. But the old people did not mind that. They loved the lamp. One day, it was the old watchman's birthday. The old woman approached the lamp, smiling to herself, and said, "I'll have some illuminations today in honor of my old man." And the lamp rattled its metal frame and thought, "Well, at last they have a bright idea." But the idea only went as far as oil, and no wax candle came forth. The lamp burned the whole evening, but now saw only too well that the gift of the star would remain a lost treasure for all its life. Then it had a dream. With such faculties there was, of course, nothing wonderful in that. It seemed to it that the old people were dead, and that it had itself come to the iron foundry to be melted down. It felt quite as terrified as the time when it had to go to the town hall to be inspected by the burgomaster and the council. But although the power had been given to it to fall into rust and dust at will, still it did not do so. It was put into the furnace and turned into an iron candlestick to hold wax candles, as beautiful a candlestick as any one could wish for. It had received the shape of an angel holding a large bouquet, and in the middle of the bouquet the wax candle was to be placed. The candlestick had a place given to it on a green writing table. The room was very comfortable. Many books stood round it, and the walls were hung with beautiful pictures. It belonged to a poet. Everything that he thought or wrote showed itself round about him. Nature changed itself into thick, dark forests, into smiling meadows where storks strutted about, into a ship on the billowy sea, into the clear sky with all its stars. "What powers lie in me," said the old lamp, awakening. "I could almost wish to be melted down. But no, that must not be as long as the old people are alive. They love me for my own sake. They have cleaned me and provided me with oil. I am indeed quite as well off as the whole Congress, in the contemplation of which they also take pleasure." And since that time it enjoyed more inner peace, and that the honest old street lamp had well deserved.